This is a demonstration on using config files with your OAuth2 REST connection. You can actually find these config files in Program 86, SentryOne, Task Factory, OAuth2 config file directory. Pre-made config files already for you. They come with your installed Task Factory. What these config files do, they mirror the setup of the OAuth2 connection manager. What you can do is prepare all the correct URLs that you need to connect and only ask for the particular parameters that make your connection unique. Each user will most likely have an API key and secret that will make their connection unique. I'm going to show you where you can prompt them to put that information up front and then use the same connection to input that data and connect to the REST API. In this example, I'll be looking at the Microsoft Azure config file. I'll be using Notepad++. This is a free online tool. Select language, and you'll have to choose XML for the color coding syntax highlighting here. The first thing we see is parameters. These are the items that will be prompted as soon as you select this config file from the OAuth2 Connection Manager dropdown. These are the only values that each user will need to put in. Redirect URI, API key, API secret, tenant ID, and resource for this API. Each one of these should be unique to the user, and the resource should be unique to your particular connection, whether you're trying to connect to Microsoft Graph, etc. For this spot, you will put a replacement. Think of this as a variable. Whenever an input is received, it will store it into this variable. The description is whatever you want to put underneath that value point. For a custom API, you can put exactly where you would find that to help out your coworkers. The name is what that value box will be called. In our case, everything will be named the same except for client ID and client secret. We will be storing it in API key and API secret. You can also choose to have this value required or not. Next, you'll have the Authorization Request URL. For most OAuth2 APIs, they connect through a grant type of code. What this will do is it is a two-part authentication. It will take your data, it will send it off to the server, then it will bring back a code. You'll have to then take that code, add a couple more pieces of your information, and then send it all back to the server, and it will verify your identity. You will then be prompted with an access token. This is the request URL token that will give you back your code. If this method is a GET or a POST, you'll put it here. This will be the particular grant that you are looking for. The most common are code and password and client credentials. In the case of Microsoft Azure, it will be a grant code that will be returned. And as you can see, that is actually used in the access token request body when sent back to that server. So here's the access token request URL. This can be a GET or a POST. In our case, it is a POST. So that means we had to fill out this access token request body. Here you have grant type of equals authorization code, and here's the authorization code. You'll notice that everything is separated by an ampersand amp colon. This is a URL encoded ampersand. You'll need to do this for all query strings. As you can see, the API key, redirect URI, the resource, the tenant ID are all being used in these requests. I'm going to parse down to access token whenever I get that response. You can set the access token expires in token path here, and you can put the unit of measurement, such as seconds. You will need to put true or false if this is a bearer token or not. Then you configure the refresh token tab here. In our case, the post request, there's the refresh token URL, the refresh token body, and you will parse down to refresh_token. You can add headers here for the refresh token and for the access token. And that is the basics of creating your own config file. You'll be able to do this for any API that you see fit. You'll need to pay close attention to your documentation to find all these values and exactly what your calls are made. We would suggest to go ahead and make these calls first to make sure that they work before putting these values in the config file, as to save yourself some time. If you were to edit one of these, you will need to close out of the REST OAuth2 connection UI, then go back into it and select this config file. This has been a demonstration of using config files with the OAuth2 REST Connection Manager. If you need any more information, you can go to SentryOne.com. or you can go to our support website at support.sentryon.com.